Hello and welcome to another episode of the TF Cast.
Today with us, we have Dinah Langsjøen, artist, creative, a million things, kind of hard to introduce. You have a lot going on. So maybe you could just update us with what's going on right now.
Like right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Oh my God. You've really opened the door for that one.
Yeah.
My dog is probably sitting at home, resting, relaxing after 7 attempts at fixing whatever was in her stomach today.
Oof.
So, but that is the immediate what's going on. The secondary to that is I have a surgery on Friday. That's number 2. But number 3 is I'm here with you guys now to talk about art and creativity and be inspirational in my own way.
Okay. Well, we are going to cover all of those things. Let's start with the art. Like, what are you working on?
Well, currently I'm actually trying to stop doing commissions because I am ready to full go into my own intuitive art approach to my own creativity. I have this habit where I take on a lot of projects because I can do them and because people know me, and I like people reaching out to me and saying, hey, I value you as an artist. Let me own something of yours. Because I'm an art history major, I thought it was really cool when you'd hear people be like, I own a Van Gogh. But I own a Langsjøen. Like I want somebody to have that kind of pride about my stuff. So I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. I'll take on commissions. Not doing that anymore after these other 2 that I'm finishing up. And then the whole bucket of other ones I should probably make good for too. Yeah.
So what's your art look like? Like what would someone expect if they showed up to a gallery exhibit of your works?
Mm-hmm. So that's a great question, Willis. Thank you. I have 2 avenues that I kind of go down on my own. Right now, it has been watercolor art, and I take a very scientific approach to what I'm doing. Like there's so much with an artist, as you guys probably know, that is just not, hey, there's a pretty picture of an owl. Hey, there's a pretty picture of a pangolin, because I painted a pangolin once, and I just want to throw that word out there in case you don't know it. Pangolin.
I feel like somebody's going to have to look that up.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a snouty thing, right?
Well, it's kind of like an anteater, but with like triangle scaly kind of things, and it wraps up in a circle kind of like a hedgehog.
Yeah.
It's just I didn't want to do P penguin when I painted that letter, so I was like, I'm going to do pangolin.
I was about to say that's a P word.
Yeah.
It's from your alphabet set?
Yeah, for my son. I did a 26-part alphabet watercolor series. That's a couple years ago now, completed, but that would be one thing if I promote myself. I sell prints of that. But in general, like I take a different approach. There's not just a, hey, let me paint this animal. Hey, let me paint this animal. It has a whole series. Like if I'm doing that alphabet, for instance, it was all profile of animal. Like it wasn't just straightforward doing whatever they want to do as profile. And then for instance, a watercolor series I most recently finished with wildflowers, which I'm going to do a part 2 of. So those of you who follow me, part 2 of the watercolor wildflowers are going to be coming up soon. But I take a really scientific approach to it because I grew up loving Audubon and having those books and like field guides and stuff. Just taking that approach to like my art. So watercolors are one tangent. The other side of it is like this really cool, I'm learning about myself, figuring out where I am in this realm, but it's intuitive art. And I'm learning it because that's the whole point. Like art is constantly developing and evolving in your own experience. So this intuitive approach to some of my abstract paintings, which they're abstract, is that I'll start a painting, and with everything that's happened in my life, you can ask me questions about this. Everything is open book. In the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, I seem to have found a correlation with when I'm painting these abstracts specifically, that months or weeks or years down the line, somehow that painting kind of becomes like a crystal ball of the moment it was in, but then I don't realize it until later. So it's like I'm prefacing or foreshadowing an event kind of thing. It's bizarre, and I really should send you guys some photos of this so that you can add it too.
We could do that. I can actually pull stuff up now too. I just did it. I pulled up the pangolin.
No, you did not.
I did.
My
I can't show you yet, but it did happen.
Okay, cool.
So they'll be able to see what a pangolin looks like.
Like my pangolin or just a Google?
I don't see your pangolin. It was a Google one.
Doesn't that sound like a dirty thing? Like I don't. I
It
don't.
was able to locate your pangolin.
That's like my newest. Okay, I'm also trying this online dating thing. I'm gonna try that on somebody one day. Be like, I do not see your pangolin.
But where's the pangolin?
Like, I thought I was promised a pangolin here, guys.
That's funny.
Like, not to be confused with another P word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait.
Did that sidetrack us, or where were we talking about?
We
We were talking about your
talking about-
pangolin.
we were doing an introduction to art, and then we got off on your pangolin, which is not.
We got off on that, huh?
Yeah.
Is this a hole we're digging now?
Yeah.
I just want to see if I can actually like render you both speechless, because then I have more time to talk.
Yeah. Well,
No,
okay.
I tease.
So.
I'm gonna go down as memorable. That's what they're gonna think about me.
Okay, so when you were talking about your introduction to art, you were saying like all of these things that have happened in the last 2 years. Maybe for the uninitiated, you should just give like the quick and dirty rundown on some of these events and how they've impacted your art.
Yeah, sure. Well, where to begin? The chronology of Dinah. In 2016, I got pregnant. I was with a man. We were engaged. Lovely. Picket fences. I'm going to not laugh. I'm going to try not to laugh. But 2017, I had a baby. My son, Torin. He's fantastic. He's my guiding light, as you'll learn down the line here. 2018, I left his dad, moved back to Minnesota from Colorado. 2019, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. 2020, COVID. I mean, come on, guys. COVID. And then the passing of his dad, actually, which has a very intuitive, that's connected to one of my paintings. That one I would love to expound upon. And then now here we are, 2021. Like, I'm thinking, hey guys, guess what? I've got all this PTO. I have 5 weeks of PTO. I'm so excited to use it for something not medically related. It's gonna be great. And now I have 2 more, potentially 3 surgeries the rest of this year. I'm like, so I've got all these like stupid life things that tomorrow will sound really inspirational how I twist it. But today I'm just like, so here they are today kind of thing. Like,
because that was today. Like
that literally,
like right
yeah.
before you came here, you're like, oh, I have to do this surgery.
Yeah.
What a drag, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because I have a breast implant. They're not real.
We'll have to change the angle.
Yeah, right. Like you should also put like an Austin Powers like can you alter these? Like they're not real. Clearly, Dinah, they're not real. But it may have developed an infection, and that could be pretty dangerous because it's right over my heart too. And so, like to have a staph infection or something developing there is not no bueno. So. Boom. It happens in 1 to 2% of people who have breast implants. God, universe, you really love giving me these odds.
Yeah. That does seem to be kind of like a, that's a lot of things that happen in a short period of time. But the painting you were talking about was actually I just caught you talking about this painting on one of our previous guests, Melissa's. She interviewed you on her Awakening Hour show.
Yep.
And I think you talked about your connection to your the father of your son and how he had just passed. And I think Red.
So his was that was a weird one. That one, I would love to send you some supplementary images of
we
this.
could do that. Otherwise, if you have like a name that I could search, for example, I found the pangolin, so everyone can hear the pangolin image.
Okay.
That you painted.
Yeah.
I found it, and now people would be watching that.
Gotcha. So the title, I don't remember the title of it. I'm so sorry, but it's yellow. So I'll just describe it for now at least, and then guys, if you've made it this far into my brain for today, look me up on Instagram or social media, and I'll link you specifically to the painting that I'm speaking of. It is stunning. It's very stunning. It is very organic, micro, like or biological, etc. I started this painting not this winter past, but the one beforehand. And I was like, you know what? I'm so sick of all this awful stuff that's been happening. I'm going to purposefully paint something bright and exciting. Here's some bright ass yellow and here's some bright ass white. White is not technically bright, but whatever. It's the absence of color. And here, I'm going to make it look like sunflowers, because what thing really has a better disposition for happiness? Sunflowers, right? So I'm like, I'm going to go yellow and bright and happy. So I started painting this thing, and it's gorgeous as a triptych. It's on 3 panels, and it looks great, but it looks kind of boring. And I'm like, well, I'm going to outline some things here. This is me, Dinah person, saying this is what I'm doing with this. And so I start going down this route, and then it goes down this awful path, and I start not to like it. And I start to think, what can I do to make this better? Well, I'm going to add some red, because red is, nice and friendly. And it starts to look really ketchup and mustardy, like kind of gross, like not exactly where I wanted my 2020 to go. And I was like, well, next, what else can I do to this to make this better? And it just started going down this route where it looked really, and I've already spoken with the person who now owns this, and she knows the whole story, so it's not going to be offensive to say it looked like piss. It looked like urine. Like it looked like urine with blood in it, right? And I couldn't figure it out. Couldn't get it right. And then I started to just almost give up on it. And I don't like not finishing things. So I was like, I'm just going to play with this. I'm going to just let whatever is happening happen. And then it started to take a turn. It took a turn to this really cool, like gold. I'd been researching kintsugi, which is a Japanese style of gold repair when they broke porcelain things. And they break, but you don't throw them out. You repair them. And that breakage, that repair, that scar, if you will, makes them more beautiful. So I was researching that at the time. So gold started to come into this painting. And it just naturally did its own thing. And it started to become very beautiful. And then I finished it and I loved it. And I'm like, I really like where this is going. And I finished it in January of 2020. And then in February or March is when Torrin's dad, his name is Steve, is Steve, because I do believe his spirit is still around. His name is Steve, and I started researching because I was the one who was there at his deathbed. And I was the one who made it with him, holding his hand during COVID, because I could not no matter what our relationship was, we were co-parenting our son, we were not together since 2 years prior. No matter what the relationship was, I could not let him go without somebody by him, right? Or holding his hand. So I was there holding his hand, and he had jaundice. Very yellow, very mustardy colored jaundice, right? And so I let him go. He passes away. That's a whole other story. We don't need tears today, because it does bring up tears when the chaplain came in with a mustard cardigan that day, and I will never, ever be able to forget the juxtaposed image of passing human with jaundice with chaplain in mustard. This is really sad. I'm so sorry.
It's quite all right.
It's fine.
Okay. So anyway, so I'm like, wow, that aside, that was a very sad time, a very big loss. And then I'm done with this painting and I'm thinking about jaundice and I'm like, why is this color so much in my head? Like I kept dreaming about this color over and over after his passing. And I start researching jaundice, and it's called bilirubin. Like the actual bilirubin is what it's called. It's when you put jaundice under microscope, and I'm not a biologist here to get this right, so please, all you biologists who are watching an art show right now, first of all, way to go. Second of all, don't knock me down here, but it has something to do with the makeup of this this compound called bilirubin. And bilirubin under a microscope is like, I will send you the pictures, identical to what I had painted during this whole experience of Steve having developed jaundice because of his diabetes 2, because of his liver failure. It's common with liver failure that jaundice comes up and all this stuff. And there it was. And I'm like, you cannot make that up. Like, I can't make that up. So I really want to get into my intuitive art, and I'm learning that. What else? I got so many more.
No, I was just gonna say that there's that intuitive art has like some kind of connection to your spiritual beliefs, or is that just like following your like whatever's happening currently in the moment?
Both. Yeah. Like spiritually, I did not grow up with religion. My religion and my knowledge of religion, I shouldn't say I didn't grow up with it. I was aware of it. I was in tune with it. But I was not taught it because my growing up was very different. We were from a cult, and my dad passed away when I was 9 months old.
Like, you want to name a
Do I want to name a specific cult?
Yeah, I was
That's
I heard this come up in Melissa's show too, and I was like, that's kind of a big one to just leave hanging. Like, I want to know more about the cult.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I think that difference with where the conversation went and the other one was more uplifting, and the cult is kind of like a little thing, but cults have a very negative connotation just by the word alone. It started out very, very innocent, like similar to, I'm not even going to drop religious sects or anything like that, but it started out very innocent, enough that it brought in a bunch of people. For instance, my mom and my dad, separate of each other, arranged marriage in the cult. But it brought them together, and it was innocent in the beginning, but then it started to go down more of what was considered the brainwashing path. It's Wisconsin-based in Shawano County. I'm hesitant on here to give some information, but I will definitely give you some later on the name.
Sure.
Just because of the nature of things in the past that have cropped up around that. Mm-hmm. Perhaps I'll.
That's okay. If
Yeah.
Like
Stay
just
within your comfort
me,
zone.
and it's not my it's my family. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm so withdrawn from it. I think that because I was very young, but so the cult, we were part of that. My mom left when we were 9. I was 9 months, and I have 6 older siblings, ranging 9 years older. So we all left, and we all have dealt with our own different ways of experiencing that journey. Mine has been my art. So I can't remember what you asked. I talk a lot.
Oh yeah, no, I just
that.
asked to like elaborate about it, because like when normally when I think of like cult, I think of like, you know, like a charismatic leader in a compound somewhere, and like, you know, that kind of thing. But like there are certainly like lesser iterations of cultiness.
You have a very hunky-dory way of cults. Mine are tainted because of what I kind of thought of them growing up. We didn't grow up with religion because my mom felt she was brainwashed by this cult and kept us, not for like, you know, purposeful, not for selfish reasons, but more didn't want to go down the road of being seemingly brainwashed again on a different place. But this one was very child abuse, labor kind of focused, where eventually it was kind of like make as many kids as you can because they're going to be what carries this belief system on. And if that means that you're taking advantage of, if myself were to be more powerful than my parents ultimately in the end by being in this cult, and so it's like you produce your offspring to walk over you kind of thing.
So it's like a pyramid scheme with breeding.
Yeah, is that like, yeah. I'm like, pyramid scheme. Is that like, do I get a Mary Kay car out of it? like always in for a new car.
the third generation of
But so from that, you've gone down your own path.
Yeah, I mean, I am fascinated by religion and spirituality. You know, I'm an art history major from UW-Madison, and, you know, art through the Renaissance was, I mean, really up at paganism and art that would demonstrate what all kinds of different spiritual beliefs are. You know, like everything was based on how you could represent what you're spiritually believed. It wasn't until the Renaissance that we kind of like delved into a more like A, B, or C approach to religion, you know, like monotheism, polytheism, etc. So ultimately, I have collected a lot of spiritual belief from my art history and just what resonated with me at the time. But if I am going down a path, I will say that I used to be very afraid to even identify with spirituality or religion because You know, some people think that if I say one thing, that means I can't believe in another thing. Well, I'm really eclectic in life in general, but also with my spirituality. I believe in Jesus. I believe in, Buddha. I believe in all these different aspects because I believe in good moral and I believe in good foundation. Like, I'm not going to say you're right, you're wrong, boom, bye. Because it doesn't matter to me what you believe. Like,
Yeah, so that's more like of a moral response to the ideas. Because like a lot of them are very specific, like that's kind of where I get caught up on many paths up the mountain kind of thing, because like sometimes I think that they're like talking about way different mountains. So I wrestle with understanding those beliefs. But I do think that a lot of the moral principles like remain the same throughout, and that's remarkable in like a human sense.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just went off. Sorry.
No, that was good. Yeah, I like hearing that too, because it's like we're all climbing the different mountain, and it's all a different size mountain, but it's our mountain. Like it doesn't have to be the same size. My mountain could be, 3 times the size of Willis's mountain over here, but
yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, but your mountain, you might not be climbing the same path. You might be going up in, the zigzag style, like you're not. I'm fascinated
with frequent slides back down it,
Yeah,
so
put on your skis, go down, take a lift up, it might be heated, might not be heated. You might be walking up barefoot, you might not be, but you're getting up there. Well, or not, just depends. Like your afterlife is yours if you believe in an afterlife, spiritually anyway. So I've gone down a spiritual path here. Yes. But as that relates to my art, it's like, I never really consciously thought about where I was spiritually until I started like really trusting my gut and myself and my intuition and the universe, like the signs that come and are there. And I'm not going to say like, hey, it's going to be right for everyone, but like when you see things, see them, let them take away any type of like stigma you have against, well, that's just a coincidence, because what if it's not? Like what if that thing that you saw 3 times in a row within quick succession of one another really isn't just a coincidence? Like what if it's actually something saying, hey, did you just notice 3 of those things? You trusting yourself yet? I'm going to let you keep trusting yourself now so that you can start to see things that are bigger. Because like in my experience, my signs start out really small until I'm like, well, that's just weird. Huh. And then it's like, here, have a little bigger one now so that you believe that in yourself. And that's how I found my cancer. Like I found my cancer on my own.
Yeah, I think that this is also something I pulled from that interview where you basically had to beg the doctors to like listen to you, that like there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, like I became my own patient advocate, and it was like so much that I understand why doctors don't want to give people like this, it's not false. They don't want to give people who are extremely prone to being worrisome that avenue of, okay, come on in, get this tested quick. Like they don't want to say, I just feel they don't want to give all these statistics of, oh my God, you probably do have cancer, come on in. Like they want to be like, no, don't worry about it, you're fine, because then you don't develop these people who are hypersensitive to things. However, in trusting myself, I did. I have no carrying risk factors. Like, I didn't have to get a mammogram until I'm 40. Well, I'm 34. I was 32 at diagnosis. So I didn't have the big one. Like you're 40, get tested. You start your routine test. Didn't run in my family. I didn't have any other signs, but like I had this teeny little, and as an artist, I attribute this to how I know the human body with muscle structure. I noticed that I started to develop a different shadow on my breast. Like just that. It was a shadow. It was just a slight divot, a slight groove, enough that I was like, that's new. Like, because if I'm drawing that, I'm going to have to put a little bit of charcoal in there because that's new. Like, that was kind of where it started. And then I started to think on it. And when you think on things, obviously, it gives it more power. And then you feel it more. Like, is that really being felt or am I imagining that? But so I was like, no, I'm going to go in and get tested. I didn't cover it. It wouldn't be covered under insurance because I didn't have any risk factors. So they kept saying, no, don't come in. You're going to be paying out of pocket. All this stuff, all the things that keep you from going in. So I'm very sorry for people who have experienced this too and don't have a way to get to it, because I'm pushy. Like, I was like, no, I'm going in. People are not as pushy as I am. Is why I'm single. But so I go in. I finally get in because a thing had changed in the fiscal year that allowed for me with my income to be under this specific program that by like less than $1,000 allowed for my income to approve me for a test, right? Like less than $1,000. Literally it changed from the month of March to April. Well, I'm like, okay, I got tested April 4th. Got my mammogram April 4th, so it's 2 years now past. And they're like, well, you know, I don't see anything. I don't feel anything. And I literally, you know, you guys are men, but they have you laying on your back to do these exams. And I'm like, nope. I literally sat myself straight up and I guided this nurse's hand into my breast where it was. And I'm like, no, feel that. And she's like, oh, maybe there is something there, you know? And so then they ordered all the tests and blah, blah, blah. And then like, they make you wait a lot. It was like 2 weeks later, I had to go in for the actual like ultrasound and the biopsy where they basically harpoon you. Awesome, right? But the doctor's there and he's like, so you found this? Like he like critically looked at me like, I've got PhD, MD, MHD, ABCDs, you know? I've got all of these things and you found this? I'm like, yeah, I did. Yeah. No, the alien put me on the bed and he said, I'm going to inject you with cancer. You're going to want to tell him that you found this. Okay. Yeah, I found it. So you get all these like skeptics about it. I mean, it's just bizarre.
But that was the diagnosis in hand, right? Like already, like he's like, you found this diagnosis.
No, that was at test 2, which was like the ultrasound where they're like going to do the radiology on it. Like they lube you up and they rub it around. It's really cool. It's all actually is really fascinating. The medical profession, I have nothing against them. I just wish that there was more of a lateral approach to it, I guess. So it wasn't yet fully like taken in for tests. It was, we see something there. It's about the size of what a cancer tumor would be. We've just biopsied you. We know that it's hard and not liquid fluid, which usually is the bad sign. And then those were just the techs doing it. And then they're like, we're going to get the doctor in here really quick. And that's when you know you have an issue. We're going to actually get the doctor in here. So he comes in and then he asks me, it's like, so you found this? Yeah. Because it was a P shape, really. Yeah.
Well, I like at this time, what kind of stuff were you doing? Like what after, like when all these kind of like life changes started going on with you, like what was the difference in your headspace as an artist before and after?
Great question. And I was just finishing or working on finishing Torrens alphabet, the watercolors, because there wasn't anything really spiritual about the alphabet yet, other than the fact that I was told by many other moms that you lose your identity after you have kids. And I didn't want to lose my artist identity. Like, I didn't want to lose it. I wanted to be artist and mom. So I'm like, I would be seeing these pictures on nursery walls, and I was wanting to decorate my son's wall to be. And I thought, you know what? I can paint that because I'm frugal as fuck. Like, I'm not going to, and I've since changed this. I love collecting people's arts now. But I'm not just going to go to box corporate store, buy something for my wall, and give it to my kid and say, this is special. Because it's not. To me, like when I can make it, it's going to be special. So I made him his whole alphabet. And that was my thing. And then it was after I finished that, roughly right after that, probably taken on some commissions. Obviously nothing that resonates in my memory because I'm blanking on it. But when I got the cancer diagnosis, I was like, frick.
That's what I would say.
I'm not
too.
I'm not doing anything that is worthwhile. There's nothing I'm doing other than that alphabet that's like me. Like that was what hit me. Is like I'm not doing anything that says that's a Dinah, that's a Langsjøen original that I want to own. Like that was where my struggle came. And then it's like you put this, as soon as that diagnosis hit, it's like tick, 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 tick. What's my time frame? And the doctors will tell you. They'll tell you a time frame. And that's great because that's what scares people into doing all the exams and tests that they need them to do and going down the routes that certain doctors want you to go down. I had to have multiple opinions on mine because I didn't agree with them. My intuition was saying, no, that's not right. So that's another aside. But I'm like, I'm not doing anything creative that is going to speak as me as an artist. So I started painting. I was like, you know what? I had this big epiphany in my life. Like we are fragile. We are fragile. What I had, that cancer, 5% of cancers are actually genetic. Like I'm going to say that I'm going to say that again. They tell you, get tested when you're 40 if you have risk factors and all this stuff. Only 5% of that is because of those statistics. 95% are natural occurrences in the actual life that you are living. And that's not specific to breast cancer. But in my head, I'm like, I need to change something. I need to do something because life is limited. And they tell you, do all these things and then add this treatment, and you'll prolong your life by such and such percentage. And then they give you these cute diagrams that are like, but this 4%, we don't know how they die. So you still have like natural death factors in there. And I'm like, so I can just die normally still? Yeah. Okay. Well, I better do something with my life.
Yeah. It like contextualizes creativity a little bit.
Yeah. And then I started really getting into my abstract. So there's a painting, just had a bunch of circles, blue, and it gets into the idea of the chakras behind the 7 chakras that the higher elevating people at bigger frequencies are elevating at pinks, magentas, purples, and very rich royal colors. And those started to come out of me for this painting naturally. And I have an obsession with circles. There's different mindsets that I'm still working towards to figure out why and of what reasoning, but I have an idea of where they're coming from now. So this painting just came out like this big bubbly circle thing in blues, purples, and magentas. And it was great.
Was that the one in the Jade Art Show?
Yes.
Okay, so I know what you're talking about a little bit. I when I saw that, I thought it was a cell.
Oh, actually, that one wasn't that one. I've been in a couple art shows in the last year.
Okay,
not the Jade one.
Okay, so then it's different, but yeah, I was thinking of that cell one, and I was like, I didn't see circles there, but
The one with the 410 project?
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of, but not the one we're talking about.
The big spirally one. Yeah, that one, like where it looks kind of like an octopus tentacle and then breaks off and like rays and sunlight and cells. Right now. Yeah, am I describing it very well?
Yeah, we got an octopus looking spiral, some rays, and some other spirals and circle shapes. I'll show everyone here. Right over here. All right, we're back.
Okay. No, so that one has its own weird stuff too. Like,
don't just lay it on me.
That one, well, yeah, and so that one took me 7 months to finish, and that is bizarre to me because with a person who wants to have deadlines and finish things, that one took forever. But that was kind of what I've learned through the process of all this, especially the yellow one, the one that I associate with jaundice and the passing of Steve, is that you can't force it because I learned. When you try to make it go where you want it to go as human, I couldn't get it where I wanted it to go. As just zoning out and putting my soul vibrations or whatever in the painting on its own, it got there faster. I wasted less time getting done with a painting and finishing it where it wanted to go compared to me as Dinah human trying to figure it out. And that's where I'm like, would really love to expound upon my abstract in the future and where I plan to when I finish all these commissions, because I'm really excited to get back and figure it out, because I've gotten like that first one I was just talking about with the bubbles and the higher frequency and the blues and stuff. It took me a long time to see where that was connected. And as I'm getting into these abstracts, it's taking me less and less time to see where the parallel in my human life is with the art life behind it. And so the circly one, blue, and I'm all excited and like I want to keep it because it's like a testament to me kicking cancer's ass. It's like I kicked ass, and it's not pink at all because breast cancer's pink. Guys, that is one of the worst things. I love people who are all like, let's wear pink. Let's just love everyone who has cancer and not put a color on it. Cancer sucks.
Yeah, it's like all kinds of cancer are probably garbage.
Pink, gray, green, yellow. I mean, every cancer, it's cancers of the rainbow, you know?
Wait, is that a thing? There's other cancer
Yes,
colors?
Yes, and it's absolutely. Most people know pink because of the month of October, because the NFL has taken it on as kind of their, I don't want to say a publicity thing, because it's not. It really does bring a lot of like research funding for breast cancer specific, but you know, breast cancer is kind of like 1 in 5 or 1 in 7 women in their lifetime will get, men and women will get a breast cancer in their life. And the breast cancer is kind of how I associate it with like the gateway cancer, in that you can have it removed and it's gone, but if it metastasizes, it will go to your bloodstream or your bones, and it comes up, or in your thyroid, it will come up years down the line in different avenues. So like that's also another push on my mental cancer struggle is younger women are starting to see cancers develop sooner now, and it has a longer time for it to metastasize down the line. So when they give me statistics based on a 10-year outlook, they're considering women who normally are in their 40s or 50s getting tests for breast cancer with their 10-year outlook. So they're not considering a younger woman who has potentially a 20-year outlook. Well, where is it coming back? You know, so kind of a little fun aside, making me really want to like focus on the now of every day. So instead of being like, well, in 10 years, I should worry about that. No, you worry about it now. Do what you do now. Like it's crazy. Like, are you guys doing what you love?
I think so.
Good.
I think that my life's pretty good. Like if I was to describe my mountain, it'd be like a very small hill with pangolins at the bottom. Just not very big at all.
So do you need like a visual of that? Are you trying to commission me? Because I'm not taking any more right now, but
That does sound like a cool project.
I have painted a mountain and I have painted a pangolin. Can I just
I don't even want to put it. I don't want it in mountain category. I want this to stay a hill, like very small. Like you wouldn't even hardly notice
like
it.
a dune, like a sand dune kind of thing? Or that would be good.
Is that where penguins hang out?
I mean, it seems that
They might.
maybe.
They seem sandy creatures.
Yeah, they do. Like they definitely.
Deserty.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Oh, okay. This is the other one that I really wanted to talk about too, was the kids book, because I've seen some of the illustrations that you've done just on social media for that, and I think it's really neat. Just tell me about the kids book.
Did you write it and illustrate it?
I haven't written it yet.
You haven't. So it's
I'm
just
working.
illustrated.
It's one of those things that takes a back burner to me trying to please other people through completing their commissions. That's the struggle.
I'm unfamiliar. Why don't we go from there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the children's book, I mean, I grew up loving certain style of illustrations. I have favorite artists like Ken Anderson of Disney era 101 Dalmatians. His style of animation, he did that and Aristocrats, and he did Fox and Hound, and he did Robin Hood with the foxes, Marion, and that specific look. And I resonate when an artist does something that's now having a child, when you read so many books that are trash, whether it's with their words or with their art, like just flop together to publish and put your name on something, distribute. It really irritates me. And so I'm reading my son all these books and I'm like, God, I can do better because I'm competitive. And I'm also like, that storyline is stupid. And when his dad passed away, I was like, there's nothing good about, there are few and minimally true representations on how a child can learn to grieve their trauma in a children's book. Because children's books are very like, oh, happy, happy, happy. Here's your good measure. Let's go build a truck yard, or hi, I'm a little blue truck and I came down the road, and like there's a lack of substance to some of these. And so last year after his dad passed away, I started checking out a bunch of books that were acclaimed to be for trauma, for kids who are experiencing grief and trauma. They're whatever, didn't really tie to any of them. There were a few that I tied with, which were actually like Native American, which deal on the spirituality behind loss and how your spirits and ancestors are still there and you can always connect with them. I thought that was powerful. And then I thought, you know what? My superpower as Dinah is that I lost my dad when I was 9 months old. I know exactly what my son needs. Like I know what he needs to feel and what I didn't have growing up, like that I have taken 30 years on figuring out how to process or like internalize and how to learn from, I can try to put into a way that in my youth would have been helpful, so that in Torrin's youth it will be helpful. And so I've started to collect things that he says, like, and that might be where we're thinking I've already written it. I collect a lot of things that my son says, and when his dad passed away, you don't want to scare him and be like, you're never going to see him again. So I was like, well, your dad is, he's not here anymore. He's dead. And then you explain death. Like, don't sugarcoat it.
Mm-hmm.
Death is death. They're not coming back. But you can still connect with them, however you feel like connecting. And so Torrin has developed this thing. He said it once on his very own. He says, Daddy's on the moon, Mom. Daddy's looking at me at the moon, from the moon. Mm. And so there was basically the inspiration for the whole in my head children's story that will come to fruition, which I think you saw a couple of the drawings of my son holding.
Yeah, it was like an orb or the moon, mm-hmm. But now that you said the moon, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, and so when I grew up, my sister would pretend that my dad was on the moon. Like she was the 9-year older than I sister in theater who would be like, Dinah, it's Dad. What did you do today? Like she'd talk to me as the moon. And so I like kind of stuck. And then he said it too. And I'm like, there's something here. Like there's something here, the moon is there. It's for everyone. Like the moon is there. It's something that's constant regardless. And so I'm collecting inspiration. The most recent one, which I just thought was beautiful, was, and this will go in there too, but he said something, Torrin did. That's my son, Torrin. He said, Mom, Dad's up on the moon. I'm going to plant a tree. The tree we planted in the front yard, it's going to grow so big that it's going to touch the moon. And I'm going to climb up the tree and I'm going to see Dad. And I was just like, God, the purity that is there in a child that you can just cultivate and help them understand that there's magic still. Like I want that. That's my big, long, I'm making children's book. But it's not going to happen until I get rid of all these other things that I've got on my plate. And yeah. Really excited about that one.
Sounds powerful.
Yeah. Thank you.
And neat that your son's going to be some kind of a co-writer inspiration. Well,
and there's where maybe you guys have some input. This is like kind of like, hey, audience out there, give me some ideas. Those of you who have experienced loss or have not experienced loss, I don't want it to be just my son's story though. I want it to be a one story for anyone who experiences loss. Like I almost don't want to even gender the child, but when there's such close photos, you kind of have to figure out a gender for it. But like no names in it. It's not going to be like Torrin's moon or something. I got to figure it out. But that's kind of the other thing with my whole, I believe in the natural process and the intuitive part of my art. I'm like, it's come together on its own at its own pace without me forcing it so far. So I just feel like it's going to all just line up when it's ready. And that's how that's my art. It just lines up when it's ready. And I think that's going to be the children's book.
Yeah. I think there's real need for that kind of stuff because it doesn't surprise me that there's not a lot of children's books like that because I think up until pretty recently, it was kind of normal to just lie to kids about everything. Like that was like the accepted parenting tactic. Like and anything bad can just be like lied away until you're like 16 or something.
Yeah. Blend that in with empathy and like not knowing how to like approach hard conversations.
Mm-hmm. And then you get, I don't know. I feel like all that stuff is now being addressed very publicly today, and it's part of larger social issues.
Oh, yeah. And it's a choice, too. It's like, it's not easy to bring it up. Like, mentally, even with my cancer, I had to choose to be public about it, and that was a big choice. And when you're talking about talking about death, that's a big choice. Because then you open up the door, like, Torrin this morning told me, he goes, Mom, I know what dead people look like. This was this morning. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, they have X's in their eyes. And then you think of how culturally in cartoons and stuff, you put X's on an eye and they're dead. And I'm like, well, Torrin, that's an artist's representation of how death looks. It looks like they're sleeping when they die. And he's like, no, they have X's. So it's like, there's this weird if you open up the can of beans on talking about death, you better follow through with it. Like, don't just say, and that's dead.
What motivated you? Was it, I mean, like, that seems like a lot of work too, like on top of it being like extremely personal.
Yeah. In specific to the children?
In your own case, like, you know, you said it was a big decision for you to decide to talk about it at
about
all.
My cancer or about his death? Okay. There was a big push a couple years ago, and I would say it kind of had to do with, who is the woman who wrote Untamed? She and Brene Brown were just like, Brene Brown started this big push of, let's talk about the hard stuff. Like, let's be open about what's going on. I think the quote was, make vulnerability viral. Like, that actually was the thing.
I think I've seen that before.
Yeah. And I've actually, ironically enough, just posted about it a couple days ago because it popped up on my news feed, right? Like, it popped up on my news feed again because 2 years ago, I posted this egg with a shape in it that said, make vulnerability viral. Because you never know who is going through something because of the fear of not sharing and being stigmatized or judged. And frankly, my cancer, I did nothing wrong. Your cancer, you did nothing wrong. His death, his alcoholism, her, addictions, nothing wrong. You go down a path and then you feel like you can't talk about it. No, that's not going to help you recover. It's not going to help you develop and learn from it or become something else. So like in my head, I'm like, this is going to be really hard. Cancer is weird. I don't know a thing about it. But the one person who might benefit from my story and have a better experience just because I offered up my vulnerability, at the end of the day, that's going to mean more to me if I survive or no. I mean, survival is ultimately number one. But it's going to mean a lot more that my fear is on a back burner if I can help somebody else kind of go on a little bit stronger with as like, just as a role model in theory. So, and I've had, in the last 2 years, 3 or 4 women reach out to me privately or publicly, being like, hey, you inspired me to go in and get checked and I found cancer, and now I've got a mastectomy, or now I've got a double scheduled. And like, to me, it's the same thing that my doctors were doing to me is, you're too young to have this, so don't worry. Well, I am an example of not being too young for this to happen. So if you have a fear about your own body and you trust your intuition, go get checked, figure it out. Like, that was my vulnerability. I had to make that choice. So, and it's saved hopefully a lot of people.
At least the ones who said something.
Yeah. And yeah,
I mean, that's gotta be crazy to have someone say that to you. Like, oh, because I took your advice, now I'm, getting a mastectomy.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, I become, I don't want to say saving grace because that sounds very like, pompous. I become a sounding board for them, for somebody who's also young, who's gone through it. Like, hey, Dinah, what do you think? Is this, how did it feel for you? And I'm like, well, it sucks. It really does. Like, I might come off really inspirational and happy because it's put this new perspective on my life. But yeah, I still have a cancer chapter in my book, and that's always going to be a chapter in the book. It doesn't erase. It can come back like, prelude. What's the one that comes later on?
Foreshadowing,
something like that. Yeah. So it's like, it could come back, and I can't focus on it though. You might have broken your arm 10 years ago. I don't know. What's something you've done that hurt?
Very little. Like I said, it's a real small hill.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean,
I got a rolled ankle here and there.
So let's just say cancer is like a rolled ankle. It can happen again. It's how you learn from that first roll and what you can do to prevent roll number 2. There is a lot of nutritional and lifestyle changes you can make, considering 95% of cancers are not genetic. It's things that we're doing in our lifetime. So, like, I don't want it to come back.
Yeah, I'm on team not come back cancer too.
Hoping there's not a sequel.
Yeah, we don't need another ankle roll over here.
With writing and with books, is that something you've had experience with in the past, or is this kind of a new venture for you?
So my caring bridge, which is the blog, this all actually does relate
blog,
to cancer.
yes.
So weird. By the way, I posted a new blog post today. So, the interesting thing is, I know I've always been a writer. I love creative writing. I actually went into college for art history and European studies. However, when I had some extracurriculars that I could do, and writing professors were saying that I should submit to these contests or to these publications, and so I did a lot of creative writing, and really, like, I have some favorite poets, etc., and I love listening to good syntax, and so I'm a very visual person. I see things very differently. I think I've caught myself stopping in the middle of like the dog park, asking a parent, "Hey, can I take a picture right now? And I know your kid's in it, but can I take a picture of that? Because I need to remember exactly what that looks like, because I need to write about that." Like, because like something triggers in me the beauty behind it. I've always been a writer, but then I started writing these caring bridge things, and they were pretty like lackadaisical and like nonchalant. And people were like, "Wow, you have a really funny way of approaching this. Like, you have a really good way of making this something I can relate to. It's not just like, I have cancer, it sucks, it's H12P5, whatever." And they're like, "I really understand what you're feeling about it." And when people started telling me that, I was like, wow, well, maybe I should do some writing again. Like, maybe I should pair this with my art. And so that was almost on my blog today. I was like, I was almost going to ask, should I make like some type of cancer anthology about how it's affected me, with a manuscript that goes beside it visually, and like things that I don't know what I want to do with this story of my life yet, but I know it's going somewhere. And like, that's kind of how I see my art right now. The intuitive art side of it is, I don't know where it's going, but it's going. I'm going to let it go. It's going to show me. So, yeah.
That's neat.
Thanks.
It seems like creativity in a way is sort of like a something you have to feed a little bit, and it gets hungry, and then you push it, you give it some energy, you see where it goes, and takes you places.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, everything needs to be fed.
Mm.
You know, if we didn't feed our creativity, you would have the same portraits over and over again, or the same animal photos being drawn over and over again, or landscape photos over and over again. You need to, I mean, I'm gonna admit, I'll be the first to admit it, but I'm sure other people have said it about me. I post a lot about my art, and I post a lot about like the progress in my art, and I feed, as you've used that analogy or metaphor, I feed off of people who are like, I really like that. I like where that's going. Because in my head, it's like, okay, this is going somewhere where somebody else appreciates it more than just me. Like, I love it. I love when people are like, that's really cool. Keep doing that. You know, and I've noticed I don't get that as much with, you know, every Tom, Dick, and Harry's commission, for instance.
Yeah.
Would you say that creativity is a social experience in that way, maybe? Or is that kind of different?
That's a really good question. I have answers. I can answer both routes on that. Yes, it's very social. I think a lot of people, like we've said, are fed off of other people appreciating their art. However, I also believe it's very personal at the same time. When I have people tell me, "Oh, I could never do that. I could never be an artist. That's not art. I can't be an artist." I'm like, well, do you enjoy it for yourself? Because that's where there are two types of ideas. Let's just say there are only two types of ideas behind art, is you're doing it for yourself or you're doing it for other people. Like, and it's where you pair that. Like, if I'm enjoying my art, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks of it. Like, if I am getting the creative dopamine out of it, like that chemical compound of reward that is created because you're being creative and you are producing something that is giving your brain that release, that is art, that is creativity. Huge proponent of dopamine. Now, if your level of reward is more because other people appreciate it, you're still going to get that dopamine out of somebody else liking it. So it's just a matter of saying, well, what do you value more? Doing it for yourself or doing it for other people? So like, I have people tell me they could never be an artist. And I'm like, what do you define as an artist? Like, how do you define it?
And I think that's personal for most people, because we've gone down that road with a lot of people on the cast where, like, I feel like some folks have imposter syndrome when you talk to them, like just around even like they're showing good art, and sometimes they're like standing in a gallery with other artists who they look up to and their work's displayed right alongside it, and they just don't feel like they belong there for whatever reason. It's like, no, you're here. Like art is a moving, yeah. I mean, I guess it's probably the monetization of it and like the prestige over time that people really get caught up on.
Well, prestige over time, that's huge too. Trained as an art history major here, we only know, well, let me just say that differently. In art history 101, it is literally the masters, and it is their one or two pieces that made them famous. Mona Lisa, the Starry Night. Until you start delving into the actual history behind each artist or going deeper into it, you have that false understanding of that Mona Lisa is famous, that's art. That Starry Night is famous, that's art. But you don't see everything that built up to that point either. Or everything else that encompassed Van Gogh, or everything else that Da Vinci did, or all the people who are off in the side inspiring these other artists. Because art is appropriation too. Like, you borrow from other people, and it's a lie to say you don't. So.
Yeah, I think that's another like really huge misconception, is this like that there's some like ultimate muse or some kind of like deeply personal creativity that's unique to the individual, that if you can just tap into, then it'll just explode and you'll be perfect and famous or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of muse, you brought a good one. Like, I used to call myself a muse because I can inspire people, but I don't want to, like, anyway. Picasso, all of his art was rated in pink period, blue period, red, those are based on different women, different muses he had on his life. It's like, to factor in that it changes. Like, you're not always creative, but if you find something you latch onto, like with something that feeds you, for instance, was Picasso an artist without his muses? Like, let's play that game. Like, would he have been as successful if he weren't taking on Francois and like his other people?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what do you have, like,
that's interesting.
When I think of the term muse, I think of something that inspires you to create. I don't necessarily like. So maybe he wouldn't have created something that people would have enjoyed, or he wouldn't have been the same thing. But
he was such a dick.
Like, oh, Picasso.
Yeah, he was such.
Yeah,
he was great. He was a great dick. He did good, but yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard some stories about Picasso.
Yeah.
Go on.
I was gonna. With your study of art history and participation in art as an artist, how do you feel, I guess, both from the art history perspective and then also as an artist, like the kind of challenge people find with like a quality, quantity kind of thing? I know Picasso too is an example of someone, I think who just did an incredible amount of work. Which certainly has some contribution to like a couple of the pieces continuing.
It is, I think I have slight teeter me back into the right route to answer this, but there is a quantity aspect to becoming famous too, and that is, you don't just make one thing and you're famous. That's more if you just. You have to develop your esteem in that culture time frame. Not often do you get famous off of one thing, unless it's so prolific that, like, I guess I can't remember who, but who did the Obama poster? Just the one thing.
Yeah.
Change.
The hope or change or whichever one it was. Like, that doesn't happen often. That one thing throws you into that spotlight.
It seems to happen often, the way like people are highlighted that way, but for the number of actual artists, it happens extremely infrequently that you're like picked up, go viral, and then maintain success.
Yeah, it's a different kind of fame too, I think, in most cases, where maybe it doesn't last as long, or it requires a different kind of maintenance than something that's built over time.
Yes. And that's where the quantity comes in, is you start to see what has supported up until that point or what then comes after that point. So that, Picasso's Guernica was huge. He didn't even want to do that painting actually originally in Madrid.
I've seen it. It's there in Madrid.
It is in Madrid, yeah.
Yes.
And he didn't really even want to do it. And he did. And it became one of his most criticized in the right way. Like it was heavily, I can't think of the word, plug me here if you can remember it. It was the most controversial. Controversial work basically up until his date. Because I think he did also guitars and he did female faces and things that were distorted, different cubist styles. But he put that together in like a very controversial, very political output. And like up until then, he was a great artist, but that was the one that did it. But then in retrospect, you see people who are looking at it who are like, well, I want to see everything else he did too. So like to say you have to have the quantity with it so that you actually can establish yourself as more than just a... Picasso is a really bad example. But...
Depth versus just like kind of a shallow one-off kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've seen some of that recently. I wish I could remember the example, but it was something on social media where it had gone through these people who had gone viral like years past for things and like just talked about what they're still doing. And like some of them were doing the same things and some of them were doing completely different things. And it was, I guess you don't get to choose what people like.
Yeah, no, you don't. And the fear behind that is you also don't get to pick or erase what you've done in the past either. Like that's the thing is you gotta kind of always believe in what you're doing once it's past the point of like training yourself stylistically or however you want to be. Like there's a lot of technique and evolution to developing a talent that, you are practicing. From one point you're practicing, eventually you're actually saying, I'm doing this because I know how. Like there's a teetering into it, but you can't erase what you've done in the past. So if you, are not putting yourself into it, do you want people to go back and look at it?
Yeah, or people might assume, that you were putting yourself into it when in fact you were just plugging it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think politics. I'm not going to get too deep in politics, but you get these people who are 70, 80 years old are running for political office and you're like, well, in his 20s. I mean, it's a weird parallel to art in a way. Like I did some still lifes in my 20s, but now I'm doing these really crazy abstracts. Are you going to hold that against me?
Well, if you're a politician, I would.
It's why there's no artistic politicians out there. No, because then it's like a double whammy.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Funny connection.
Things that there's parallels in everything in life. It's just kind of how you view it,
I feel that.
Well, hey, let's call it plugs and head that direction. Where can we direct people so that they can see your work, read your blogs, and participate in your thing?
What do you think your strongest avenue is? Facebook, Insta?
We're on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, then I would say the good start point would be to... And then you have to spell my name, huh? You can post that name.
We can link a Facebook page probably.
Okay.
We could do that.
Yeah, I would say start at the Facebook page, and then there's different connecting ways of like emailing me versus going to my Instagram. Now, it depends. My Facebook I think Facebook art pages are harder to navigate than people really want to do because you have to look through blogs and scroll down and then see ads and whatever. If you want to see a good representation of the last 4 or 5 years of my art, I guess, and then a recap of some, I would say my Instagram, which is DinahSays_art. And then the human behind that one is DinahSays_artless.
Ooh.
I'm so creative, right? Now you're like, ooh, she's so creative. I don't even think I want to look. like, ooh. No, because that was when I left Steve's dad, or Torin's dad. I was like, I need to separate my personal from my art so I can keep people from that. Like, that's what I did. But my Instagram.
Cool.
Yeah.
Instagram or the Dinah_says_art.
No.
Well, sorry,
Oh my
I
God.
butchered it already. We could do the title.
It will appear on the screen.
Don't listen to Willis
Say
here.
it again for me.
Dinah says.
Dinah says.
Yeah, DINAH
Okay.
SAYS _ art.
Art. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well,
I won't try and repeat it.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it there.
Don't do a basic Google search unless you want to see some puppetry.
I saw an old website update of yours, I think, that said living in Colorado and doesn't see herself returning to Minnesota anytime soon.
Yeah, I think that was like 2016 or 15 or something. And I'm like, you pay for these silly web hosting companies, and you're like, I'm not paying for that one anymore.
Oh, so it's just out there.
It's just out there, and like retracting it probably costs money or something. I tried to retract a MySpace once, and they make you provide a photo ID to prove your identity. Yeah, so it's just floating out there in the world.
Yeah, that's the quality that maybe you wish you could take
Erase,
back.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that old SoundCloud post I made could just kind of come down anytime.
Right? Or that time where I joined. No, never mind. You'll just have to research me.
It's out there on an old web page.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. It was fun to chat with you. Get to know you a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, you guys, for having me and for saying 5 words to my 1,000. I'm so wordy.
We just like to kind of keep
normally
feeding the guest
Yeah.
as it goes.
I was like going to try really hard not to interrupt on that one. I was like,
I thought you had something.
Oh no, I didn't. I was just gonna wish the best on Friday too.
oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. That being said, also my Caring Bridge, if you guys want to check on my surgery, joint job, Dinah, just search Dinah in Caring Bridge or my Facebook. You'll see it, I'm sure. Like if you're interested in that side of this all. If not, I love you too.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.